Well, hello and welcome to this first live stream. I'm hoping you can hear me. Let me know in the comments if you can't. I've had a lot of trouble with my microphone this morning. I was trying to set up a nicer one and it was all the way to the left and I couldn't get it mono until about 10 minutes ago I gave up and had to reconfigure it all with a really bad mic. So hopefully you can hear me and hopefully we can get on with this stream. So this is a prototype build for a game that we were making for Activision at the end of 2005. So Madagascar the movie had come out and they had produced a game with, I think Toys for Bob had done a game for the launch of the movie. And party games were all the craze. I think you had Buzz the Music Quiz, which was a big Sony one, things like that. So they wanted a party game to go on the PlayStation 2 as well, to cash in on the party game craze and on the Madagascar film craze, which had done really well. So we started work on this. And we'd got pretty far into it. And I can't remember the reasons they cancelled it. Maybe everyone was doing party games and they weren't selling. But anyway, this is a prototype I found, dug up. Here it is. So let's have a look at it. And as we go along, you can hear bings from my email, I've just realized. I thought I'd muted my PC, but I will do now. Give me half a second and we'll mute it. Okay, hopefully that is better. So yeah, so we'll go through this prototype. Let me know in the comments if there's things that you spot on the way that you want more detail on. We'll dive into things, maybe have a play with an editor or two. But anyway, this is a party game. It's a 4-player party game. I'm just going to play it on my own. The AI will take care of the others. And we'll start over here with the cargo ship bay. Now let's go in. So there's 2 levels here. There's Dolphin Races and Animal Glide 1, which it says at the bottom are playable. So again, this was a build we made and sent to Activision for testing, their feedback and everything else very early on. So if we press start, obviously if there was more players, they'd be able to press X to join in at this point. It's just me, so we'll join in and have a look. Now bear in mind, this is a very old disc. It's a very old gold disc. It was burnt to a rewritable disc, I guess 13, 14 years ago. So I'm not sure how much this will run, or how much will crash. This is running, someone's asked in the comments if this is an emulation. This is running on a PS2 that is sat, it's a test PS2. So this is a special PS2 that will only play, which will play gold discs as well as everything else. Right, it's loaded, which is great. So this is obviously the ship that they came to shore in at the start of the movie. So just for clarity, this is a PS2. It's a test PS2. It's a gold disc running the code that we made. So real hardware. It's being streamed in via a HDMI adapter on the back of the PS2, which is a great little device. $10, $20 on Amazon, and it goes PS2 to HDMI. You can plug it straight in. I'm plugging that into my Ava Media streaming box. So let's have a look at this game. So it looks pretty. It looks pretty finished, this section. There's butterflies flying in and out of shot, little creatures, boat, nice waves, things like that. So I'm guessing the thing you do here, and again, lots of this isn't finished, is I'll press a key probably when this gauge is highest, and then I'm launched as, I guess, Rico. And I can lean left and right as I go using the shoulder buttons. And then if I press both at once, I'll lose altitude. And I think the idea is to land, I guess, on the highest scoring spot. But it's incredibly difficult. There you go, I've missed completely. So at that point, I will fall on my back and die and not get any score at all. Meanwhile, I guess other players would take their turns on this section, but because it's one player, it's just me. And you can see the AI is scoring extremely highly. Skipper has 210, Private has 250, Golski has 210, I have 0. So let's see, I have no idea whether I'm going to be able to land anywhere. Let's go for the 25. So I'm dropping in height here again. Come on. Now I don't know if that counts, if I have to land on the object. Let's see if I get a score. It doesn't look like I got a score. So I actually have to land on a barrel or something like that. This is extremely hard. Okay, so let's try again. I'm always going at the highest speed. I'm not sure if I should. Someone's asking if there's any Easter eggs in this. Probably. I don't know. To be honest, I've not really played around with it much. I thought it'd be more fun for us to play around it at the same time. So I'm going to be discovering stuff at the same time as you guys are. Oh, maybe, come on. No! Oh, it's so hard. Let's go for this. Come on, land. Oh, no points at all. Okay. So there you go, brilliant. I scored 0. So that looks pretty hard, or maybe they hadn't done the collision on it yet, because it just said playable, didn't say complete. So that's the first game, and I'm sure we'll have other ones like it as we go along, sort of the same style. So Dolphin Races, let's see what this is like. Someone's saying it's very Crash-like music. Yes, it is. Can someone tell me who's really knowledgeable whether it actually is Crash music? It's possible for the prototype we just threw in stuff. I'm not sure if anyone recognises this or whether we'd done unique music already. We'd usually use some guys called Blythe Joustro who did a lot of our music for our early games. Brilliant guys. They ended up doing a lot of TV music in the end. Okay, so here we go. Looks like we're riding on the backs of dolphins. It looks like Finding Nemo going on below there. I think I am Alex the Lion at this point. And yeah, seeing as, let's see. So I can turn with the, yeah, I can steer left and right. And it looks like, are they melons in the water? This viewpoint's very far back. I guess so all 4 players can fit on screen at once. And looks like, well, they're not mines. What are those called? The spiky anemones? Who needs fronds when you have anemones? I think was the Finding Nemo bit. Okay, so let's see if I can get some of these pickups. Okay. Wow, definitely, okay. Definitely tricky. Have I got any yet? Oh, there's one. Now I think, I'm trying to remember if we had made Finding Nemo yet at this point. Again, I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me on the exact timeline for Finding Nemo. But a lot of the graphics in the background look very much like the Nemo movie. So whether we used any as a starting point or not, I'm not sure. Hey, I'm in the lead. I'm sure ever so briefly. What's interesting about this is I'm way in the lead out front there, but my actual score, oh no, I am ahead on score as well. I wonder if it adjusts you based on score or not. Let's have a look and see. It's the last lap. Hey. Oh, well, I crossed the line for, yeah, I got the highest score by a long way. Okay, so that's reasonably playable. All right, someone's telling me Finding Nemo came out in 2003. So this is a couple of years later. So I'm guessing a lot of those effects we'll have tried out in Finding Nemo. I'm just going to have a look in the comments and just scroll through and see if there's any sea urchins. Apparently, what did I say? Can't even remember. Oh, anemones. Okay, yep, sea urchins. When was this game cancelled? I think shortly after this. Someone's asked in the comments, Sky Maniacs was asking, when was this game cancelled? I think we sent this demo, maybe they looked at it and thought, nah, a lot of work or, not the start. I don't think we got any further than this. I have 2 demos for this game. One is very early, maybe I'll put that on later, which was just Alex on the beach wandering around, which was probably a proof of concept for Activision to show the graphical style, and then this is the other build I have. I don't have any builds later than this. So let's see. Okay, so beach huts. Okay, so this is obviously, it says they're out to lunch, so I'm guessing this is a section that hasn't been made yet. Let's move on to Bonkers Beach. There's Wacky Races 2 and Animal Crochet. Let's go to Animal Crochet just because it's simple. So this is concept art early. Someone's asking, Pokecam's asking, what was the idea behind this world map? I think just to give an overview of the island. I would imagine that you would start maybe by the ship and work your way across it. You wouldn't have all the levels open like this straight away. I would imagine it would be, apparently someone's saying the song is Bamboozled, which I think is from Crash. Bandicoot, yeah, Crash music. So the idea would be as you completed levels, more and more the island would open up and you'd sort of progress your way around. So this is just a test area that the artist will have put in a character to let Activision or whoever have a look at the graphic style before the gameplay was put into this. This is the area where I used the particle editor. What's interesting is there's details like there's something written in the sand here. I'm going to see. So if I go to the magical editors, oh, look how many editors there are. Go to particle positioner, because I know how that one works. And here's the whole level. So boundary break, fun times. Very easy when you've got the editors. So we'll zoom in here, and there's a great big hole in the ground. Okay, all right, okay. So, last will and testimony. Testament, spelt wrong. Well, since I'm doomed to die on this forsaken island, I, Malman, is that spelled right? Mankiewicz, being of sound mind and unsound body, have hereby divided my estate equally among the 3 of you. Excuse blah, 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 blah. So I can't remember if that was in the movie. Again, comments, let me know. And I guess this is his grave, which is a bit morbid. But I guess he was not happy. Oh, look, this, okay. He wasn't happy in the movie when he got here. Marty's. There's some particles, you see. I'm not going to get into particle editor, but just to prove it's all very quick and easy to use. There we go, particles. All right, let us return. So that's the graphical style for that level, which is obviously not as yet finished. Okay, I'm getting loads of comments coming through, but that may be just because. Oh, okay. If people think the comments are moving too quickly, let me know. I'll switch it into slow mode. I figure there's enough of them at the minute. Comic Sans, right? Yeah, the font. I do like Boundary Break, the creator. I was actually in one of his videos a while ago. That alerted me to the channel, and I enjoy those. So definitely go subscribe to Boundary Break. There's some great stuff there. And if you're not subscribed to here, please do. It'd be really useful. It really helps out. Okay, so where did we get to? Bonkers Beach. Okay, so there's another Wacky Races 2, whatever that is. Let's see what that is like. Right then. Let's have a look-see. Assuming it loads. It's always a risk. Okay, someone's just told me there's about 500 people watching. Wow, that's crazy. Thank you so much for giving up some of your day for this inane stuff. Yeah, okay, that's thrown me slightly. Amazing. Thank you, everybody who's watching. Okay, so this is an on-foot race. Same deal as the dolphins, I guess. Different handling mechanics. It's less slow and floaty than the dolphins. But I'm not winning, that's for sure. It's actually very easy, even with the coloured rings around the animals, to lose track of who you are. So on this, every time you pick up, and probably on the dolphins as well, but it was less noticeable, every time you pick up a melon, you have a little speed boost. But I'm still curious as to whether you can win the race. Because theoretically, you could collect a whole ton of melons and then go really, really slow at the end and actually not cross the line first. But I'm wondering if you'd win anyway, because you had the most points. Is that? Oh, it's okay. All right, so this is pretty complete visually. You've got bumblebees around the place. You've got tiki torches, I think, or whatever those torches are called. Lighting is nice. Gets a little tricky going behind some of these trees. This is always the problem with a fixed perspective game like this, is as you go around the level, and we had this a lot in LEGO Star Wars. LEGO Star Wars worked so well for 2 players because it was a fixed camera position that you didn't have any real rotation on the camera unless the game did it for you. It was effectively kind of, we call it 2.5D. And this is the same thing, but when you're running around in circles doing laps, you have to design the level extremely carefully to make sure that the objects that you're running around in the foreground here don't obscure your view. So you can see here I'm getting stuck behind a rock. It's a little hard to see. So everything has to be placed very, very carefully. Oh, interesting. So there I got stuck and got left behind, probably due to ineptitude. And it repositioned me back on the screen when I lagged too far behind. All right, last lap. So there's a lot of these foreground plants, and the balance of the artist is always they want to make it look really pretty, but you don't want to block the viewpoint of the race. So this is obviously a balancing act. For those of you who are old as me, this is basically Super Sprint from the arcades, except they played that on a single screen. And instead of picking up spanners, you're just picking up. There's a little crab there running away from us, picking up melons. Okay, so I'm not done well. But let's see if I can get some melons at the end. Let's see if I can take the lead and see what happens when I cross the line. Ah, missed it. Oh man, see this bit? I wish I could. Oh, okay. It looks like I've just found I have some sort of move. So I don't know if I can hit the other players, but it definitely looks like an attack of sorts. I don't know if that's sped me up either. I'm certainly going to cross the line first. Okay, so here we see. So I crossed the line first. So did I get extra points for coming first as well? That would make sense. So you're collecting points for the melons, and then you also get additional points when you cross the line. So interesting. We make the Dizzy series. Up-to-date Dizzy would be cool, says somebody. Micro Machines, yes, for sure. Micro Machines, that was basically Super Sprint 2. Way before this. Micro Machines was a great little game. D-Pad FTW says, do you have any tips for indie developers these days? It's interesting, and if you'll indulge me for a second or two, I think it's a great time for games. When I started making games, you could make them on home computers like the Commodore Amiga, the Commodore 64, the ZX Spectrum, and it was an entry point. You could get in there, make a game, and if you made a great game, you had a chance of getting it published. Then we moved to consoles, the Sega Genesis, the Nintendo, Sega Mega Drive for you UK viewers. And the problem with that was you needed tens of thousands of dollars to make a game, and you needed the hardware, you needed to have Sega or Nintendo on your side and allow you to publish. So it really narrowed the chances of you, narrowed the chances of you being able to make your own game in your back bedroom. And for the longest times, consoles really kept everybody out of the market for making games yourself. Then 2 things happened. PC games had a resurgence with Steam, and also the iPhone came along, both of which platforms you could make indie games for and get them published and get a market. Let me come back to that indie game point, because I don't want the whole stream to be me just talking about indie games. Let's go into here. Now that says fully playable, which we've not seen before, and Animal Crochet 2. So obviously the crochet game wasn't completed. Natenbox64, thank you for saying that. He says, I was playing Leander for Amiga, fun game. Okay, there's no chance for me to make this ISO public, I'm afraid. It's got to belong to somebody, for sure. It's difficult because obviously I own TT Games and I'm Traveller's Tales. When I made this game, I paid for it and everything else. But then, Activision, and these characters are obviously owned by DreamWorks. So yeah, I can't be throwing these kind of ISOs out to the public domain. It's not something I'm going to do, which is why I'm hoping to show you as much as I can here with a deep dive. So here we've got Alex, the lion, running around this area. So I guess there's going to be there was the idea of a croquet game. I'll see if there's any in the build that are finished, but again, this is just a test area. Let's go back to the editors and have a quick look at the level itself, see how big it is. Oh, so for those of you who don't know how we make levels, so here's all this geometry, which is the level itself. This is the croquet area here. You can kind of see laid out where Alex is in the middle there. There he is. So that's the area you'd play on. As you go further away, the stuff gets lower and lower polygon because you don't get close enough to it to be an issue. So dense polygons here in the middle. As you go further out, less polygons. It's just filler because you're looking through trees. Right at the back, we have a thing called a sky dome. And this is just a big dome with a texture on it that covers the entire area. If I zoom right out, you can see there it is. And that's just a grass texture and the sky dome, and everything lives inside there. I've probably flown too far away. See if I can get back in or not. Oh, there we go. Good. Okay, let's go back to the game. So yeah, so that's a quick look at the anatomy of a level. Interestingly, the music stopped now, probably because I went into the editor. Let's see. Where were we? Boa Bob trees, is it? Right, let's have a look at Animal Glide 2. Someone was asking if this does multiplayer, if it's in the build. I believe so. I think it's all set up for multiplayer. I just don't have 2 control pads and 2 people here at the moment. But I think it was all set up. I think it was originally multiplayer, and then we had to add AI for the other characters. Joseph Loop says, your videos on Pugsy inspired me to get the game myself. Excellent. I love Pugsy. It's really hard to get into, but there's so many levels and so much detail put in that. Somebody's shouting at me in all caps, telling me to do a collab with Beta64. He's a good YouTuber. Yeah, maybe. I don't know how to do collabs, so maybe that's something I'll figure out at some point. Christian Iverson says, any in-jokes hidden in this prototype? I don't know. Maybe that, well, I don't know if TT jokes. There'll be plenty of little hidden secrets to do in Madagascar, I think. Let's have a look. Okay. All right, so that's how you get launched. Alex jumps onto, oh, okay. All right, so this is very similar to the boat one. Okay, so you can fly through rings. So I guess the boat one would have been the same, the one we saw on the ship, that you would get points for going through these, and then, okay, so that makes some sense. Oh, I made it, I got some points. Okay, so this is what happened. So we saw the boat one earlier. It didn't have any of those pickups on the way, so that makes sense, because it was a bit dull, the boat one. So with this one, if they're saying it's fully playable, so this is what we're going to get. We've got a viewpoint with the penguin Rico ready to be shot in the air by Alex. I've done a really bad one, so I've not got much height. And then you would steer your way through the different fruit, gaining all the points for the fruit, and then you would get points for the landing, which I'm not going to make, so I may as well do that. Land there. Mr. Democracy said it looked like Crash in the background there. It was just Alex. See, that would be a great cameo. So it's Crash Bandicoot jumping on. Here we go. Okay. So this makes sense. Okay, so this is more fun. It gives you something to do as you move around. I mean, it's not pilot wings, but it's a similar concept. I've still yet to stick the landing. I really want to. Maybe I can. Oh. Okay, you got some points for that. 240. There you go. Good. So there you go. Right. Someone's just mentioned lol dongs. They said, since CT made the Wrath of Quarter, what was responsible for the horrendous load times on the first PS2 release? Okay, so here's what happened on the PS2 release. And this is really interesting. Well, I think it's really interesting. We'd made a game while the level was loading where Crash fell down the screen, as you see in the finished product, and moved left and right, a little bit like that, but just in 2D, picking up Wumpa Fruit as he fell. And so what would happen is, while the game was loading, you'd pick up Wumpa Fruit, and then when you started the level, you'd have that many Wumpa Fruit already. And that was great, and we submitted the game, got it ready to send to Sony for manufacture. And then because we were working, I think Konami was publishing Crash in Japan. I think they pointed out, I'm not sure it was Konami or Namco, I think Namco owned a patent for having a loading game while loading a main game. So I think it was Ridge Racer on the PlayStation 1. They had, I think, Galaga playable as the game loaded. So you'd play Galaga while it loaded the main game on the loading screen game. So then they pointed that out to us. Now I argued, well, we're not loading the main game, we're just loading data for a level. So this is every level. It's not the same thing. It's not, the patent covers loading the main game, not level code. But they didn't want to risk it. So what happened last minute is we had to take out the picking up of the Wumpa Fruit. And so you just fell down the screen. And there was obviously then no time to go in there and speed up all the load times. So we were stuck because it was so last minute with horrendous load times and nothing to do while they were loading. It was awful. We did do what we did then, they didn't have patches in those days, but for the second run of discs, we halved the loading times. And then I think on the GameCube and the Xbox, the loading times were an awful lot better. But anyway, that was why. Okay, so let's go to the next level. King Julian's magnificent super duper village, which only has one thing. Julian says art only. Let's have a look. Thank you, Rakan Haddad, for your comment. Let's see. Do you know, talking about patents and patent abuse, I think Atari owns the patent for sideways scrolling. So if you have a game, let's take, Defender or something like that, they patent sideways scrolling. So any game that scrolls sideways, Atari could technically sue you for. I think it's Atari. Okay, this is, there's nothing happening here. Can't move. There seems to be no stuff. Let's go into the editor and see what's around. Again, there's your Sky Dome. It's hard to control. So this is a very small area. There was no playable character. Let's turn around there. Okay, so there's a nice looking waterfall in the background. Okay, so there's a few things in here. It's like a spin the wheel thing, saying Wheel of Misfortune, and a kind of play area. Oh, okay. So this looks like there would be a game set up with this kind of viewpoint, like that, I would imagine. Let's go back to the game. Yeah, you see, so it's not, camera angle's not looking up enough. All right, let's exit this. Interesting. Why did Crash 4 have so many vehicles? Because Universal wanted, thank you, Stefan, wanted the game to be different. They'd had 3 Crash Bandicoot games which were just running along 2 levels. At the time, everyone thought that the variety of gameplay was why people bought games, and that various different gameplay styles would attract people to buying more sequels. And so they wanted lots of different vehicles in there, which is what we dutifully supplied. Some worked well. I like the sort of monkey ball sections, and others less well. And games now are much more single genre and execute really well, rather than mixing up lots of different genres. Right, let's have a look in Deepest Darkest Jungle. Right, there's 4 sections here. Julian Says. Right, so Julian Says is kind of what the other one said was a prototype. So let's have a look at what this is. So that section we just saw where we didn't have any camera angle. Tails 19935 says, any update on the Sega Sonic 3D cassette? No, unfortunately I've heard nothing back. So if anyone knows those people. Oh look, this is running there. I've just had no reply from Sega. Okay, so we're on foot. Okay, right, trying to figure out what to do. All right, so you pick up bananas, put them in your holder. So 4 players would play at once. I'm Alex. Collect fruit. That's what I'm doing. So you can see this is similar layout to that other one that didn't have any gameplay in it. Someone's just asked, it's hard to play in, oh hang on. Okay, jump on the obstacles. Can I jump? I didn't even know I could jump. Oh, you can jump. Well, now I've picked up bananas. How do I jump on the obstacles? There's a jump. Was that Melman? Is that me? Am I getting any of these? Yeah. All right, so Simon says, basically, in terms of, how did I? Oh, I didn't die, good. So you jump on those, you get some points. Oh, the bananas have all gone. I'm guessing the different coloured ones are worth more points? Okay. Avoid. All right. So I'm getting points just for staying alive. Oh, and losing a lot of... I lost a lot of points. The scores are actually a little strange. It says I have I have 02604 points. But that, when I get hit, you lose the last 2 digits, which is a little strange. Codename Z. Well, what if someone breaks into your house and steal the cassette and this game, then publish it? Well, I mean, it would be highly illegal, and I certainly wouldn't recommend trying to break into my house. That wouldn't be good. I guess it must happen. I guess these things have happened. I mean, Sony got hacked, didn't they? And all their films and emails went out there. People want stuff badly enough. I think Half-Life 2, somebody hacked into Valve servers and got a pre-release version of Half-Life 2. So when people are really desperate for something, they'll go desperate measures. Okay, now what's happening? Jump on the... Oh, it's a different obstacle. It's like a rock. Oh, that was easy. As they're coming out, if I get there... No, I've got stuck with this. Okay. There we go. Will we get to see Hoover Dam level from Transformers at some point? Yes, you will. I have Hoover Dam on the PlayStation 2 prototype and on an Xbox 360 prototype. So I'll do a video on that at some point. Or if it feels like there's a lot to get through, maybe a stream. Someone's saying about the Half-Life, Timothy Y says it was when Steam was new that it was hacked. I'm not sure if they would have had it on Steam though. Oh, there you go. Someone hacked Gabe's PC and downloaded the source code. And somebody, Armando, saw the documentary on it. I'm not evading bees very well here because I'm trying to read comments at the same time. Okay. This is quite long. This is a lot of stages. It says my score is 65 again, 66. I've no idea what my score actually is because there was all those extra digits sometimes. I'm not doing well. I suppose in 2 players this would be fun, or multiple players. Against AI it's a little annoying because they're a little bit too perfect. So these must be, let's see how many points I get for this. 75, 80, so 5 points for the colourful one. Why was the GameCube version of Crash Twinsanity cancelled, says Kiki Games 1? That's a good question. I'm trying to think back. Because we had, the way we make our games is they port to every platform. We have a team of people, the way we write our game engine. So we'd make Lego Star Wars, it would ship on 5 or 6 platforms all at the same time because the same code would compile on all the different platforms. We'd do some texture reduction or whatever, but it wasn't a big problem. to get it on the GameCube. I think maybe the GameCube market had fallen apart. That's the only thing I can think of as to why we wouldn't have gone on it. Well, there's two reasons why we wouldn't have gone on GameCube. One would be an exclusive deal. So we'd done a deal with PlayStation or something for the exclusive window or game. Well, the other one is that the platform wasn't viable anymore. And by viable, it wasn't worth the stock risk of manufacturing, a couple of 100,000. If you go out there and manufacture a couple of 100,000 cartridge boxes and ship them out to Toys R Us and they don't sell, there's a vast amount of inventory risk there. It's less of an issue now with downloadable games, but certainly back then you could be sitting on, and E.T. was a great example way back when, where they had to bury like 4 million cartridges in the desert. So a lot of when we made games, we had to assess, is a platform coming to the end of its life? Are people going to be able to buy this? Or are we going to end up with loads of stock? Ben Paz says, I heard it was based on size limits. Possibly. I mean, the cartridges weren't as big, I don't think, as the discs. And certainly the bigger the cartridge, the more expensive it was. Someone's asking, Akira Takami is asking, what is the name of this game title? It's called Madagascar on the disc, but I can't see an actual title beyond that. It would have probably be called like Madagascar Party or something. I'm not sure what the actual, we just call it Madagascar when we were playing. Okay, Julian Player says, animal croquet art, rafting. Okay, we'll see what rafting is. Playable placeholder art, whatever that means. Playable placeholder art. Okay, so Chokai says, what were some other platforms that weren't viable? PSP. That was a great handheld, and we made a great Lego Batman port on that game, which ran the full console game on that. But very quickly, I think the next wave of consoles came out, the next generation of consoles, and the PSP became very hard to keep up with. So that one was when we had to really keep an eye on. Generally, Nintendo consoles didn't have as big an installed base until the Wii came out as the other consoles. So we were always a little cautious. Dreamcast was another one where we made Buzz Lightyear a Star Command on the Dreamcast, and we were going to make other games on the Dreamcast, and again, the platform just became unviable and died. PlayStation Vita is another one. Which is always a shame, because every console really has its merits. Dreamcast was a great console, it just got out-generationed. It was kind of a middle generation console because the Saturn hadn't worked out. PSP I loved as a handheld. 3DS we always made games for, and the DS, because they were so popular. They were tricky because we had to make a separate game for those. We couldn't just port our game straight to it. We had to make a completely separate game. But because they were such big selling titles, it always made it viable. So we had a separate studio make our games. And then we became, rather than try and get the main game running on PSP, we ended up porting the DS game and the 3DS game to the PSP. So the PSP became more of a handheld game feel, which has pros and cons. Yeah, Toy Story 2 on the Dreamcast is beautiful. Thanks, Ricardo, the player. That's a great version of it. It was a great console. I love the Dreamcast. I had one. I think it was an original Japanese Dreamcast. Hey, this is cool. Sorry, I'm sort of playing the game remote control. It's the Dolphins, basically, but with rafts instead, a bit like Splash Mountain. There's mines to avoid. All right, so we avoid mines and pick up things. And we just went up a lift device that got us back to the top of this. So this is interesting enough. Artist placeholder, I guess. Favorite game on the Dreamcast? Sonic Adventure, I guess. I didn't have a whole lot of games. There wasn't a whole lot of games on the Dreamcast. Let me just see. Yeah, that was Lavender the Great who asked that. Yeah, so probably Sonic Adventure. Sorry, interesting thing with streaming versus just making a video is obviously you have to keep an eye on the comments because I want to answer your questions. This isn't Ask Me Anything as much as it is seeing this prototype build. So I want to keep an eye on the comments. Let's see. Yes, Lego Lord of the Rings. This is Stefan saying Lego Lord of the Ring game did not look as good on the Wii compared to the other versions. Yeah, we tried hard to keep the Wii viable. Again, that was another console which was dying. Oh, sorry, not the Wii. Sorry, I'm thinking of the Wii U. Yes, so the Wii console, another console that was underpowered compared to the other generations. A lot of people thought the Switch would suffer the same fate, that people wouldn't support it because it was a pain to port games to it, and the games weren't as good as the PlayStation 4 games. But because it sold so well, publishers put the effort in to support it. And it was the same on the Wii. Because it sold so well, we kept down porting our games. So they wouldn't be as good because the hardware wasn't as good, and there'd be some compromises. But we always tried to get the balance. The best way to make games actually is to make them on sort of the lowest spec machine, and then add lots of features to the bigger ones. But then the people with the higher spec machines feel like, well, I want my game made for it specifically. And again, there's a tipping point where the newer machines start outselling the older ones, and the installed base is bigger, and so it's always a big balancing point when you're developing games, is knowing which is your target platform and which ones do you port to. It's a shame all consoles aren't created equal, but on the other hand, if they were, you would only need one console. Jake Sharrett, did Traveller Tales ever develop any games based on Cartoon Network properties? That sounds sweet. Cartoon Network, let me think. I'm trying to think what was on Cartoon Network that we might have done. I don't think we did. No, I don't think so. Let me see. This seems a long section, it's got to say. Maybe because it's not finished and there'll be other things to do. But it's a little bit repetitive, this one. I've just thought, do any of the other buttons do anything? They do not. Let's go back up the ramp. I think we're almost finished. Dexter's Lab. I loved Dexter's Lab. I used to watch that with my kids when they were young. I really enjoyed Dexter's Lab. Once we started making Lego games, and even before that, what you've got to understand is, as TT, we were very, very lucky to work on the top licenses. We were making Lord of the Rings games, we were making Star Wars games, Transformers, Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Whenever there was a major film coming out, we were making a game with it, which meant that making a game for something like Dexter's Laboratory or something like that was we called it an opportunity cost, which sounds very corporate. But it's like, we've got a team of people. They can either make Lego Star Wars or they can make Dexter's Laboratory. We can't make both. And obviously Lego Star Wars is going to have a bigger fan base, so we would make Lego Star Wars. So that was a lot of our choices were determined by size of the license and keenness of the team to work on that particular license. Somebody just asked me further up, did you work on Bionicle Heroes? That was a major childhood game for me. I did work on Bionicle Heroes, absolutely. I did a lot of the design on that and obviously ran the team and the studio and directed it. I've got a ton of old prototype builds for Bionicle Heroes. So let me know somewhere if you'd ever want to see those. I've actually got a build where it was a first-person shooter. The final game was third-person. The original concept was first-person. So we've got a whole build where you run around in first-person mode playing that game. And we found we weren't going to be able to get a low enough rating because a first-person shooter, regardless of content, was going to get a higher certificate than Lego was happy with. So we found that changing it to third-person and showing the Lego character would allow us to get the rating we needed. It was no point making a Bionicle Heroes game if you had to be 14 or older to play it. So, but it's fascinating to look at the first-person shooter version of it. Now then, let me see. Let's go on to the next section. A whole ton of comments just... Spooktacular Wheatley, which is an awesome name, says, did you guys at TT manage to reuse game assets or effects from your cancelled games into other games that did get released? Any examples would be so interesting to know about. Yeah, we had very few cancelled games, to be honest. I hadn't even remembered this game until I found the disc for it. We were very lucky that we'd get a game, we'd make it, it would get published. So with this, we'll have figured out multiplayer stuff with this. There'll probably be tree graphics and things we'd have used in other games like it. I wouldn't be able to give you specifics in this example. But yeah, we definitely would reuse assets and code ideas, concepts, more than anything. We tended to recode stuff as much as we could. Let's see. So we've seen that one. Let's have a quick look at the animal crochet. Now listen, if you guys don't want to see every single section of this game, if this is getting dull, let me know in the comments. I don't want to sit here and waste your day, but I guess you can log off if you don't want to see it. But I just figure if we're looking at the build, let's look at the whole thing. Okay, so now I can run around as Rico, maybe? So I can't remember what this, was this animal croquet again? Seems like the animal croquet sections are the ones that don't have any gameplay to them. So that was obviously a section we hadn't run. I don't know what those are. Maybe they could be skulls. Maybe you used skulls. Maybe you hit skulls around as the croquet balls in this section. Let's have a quick break of the boundary. So pretty big area. Again, you've got all the layers, and then if you happen to look through a hole, you'll see these trees in the background are just polygon texture, and then further in the background. These light beams are fun. So there's different ways of doing light beams. You can do them with particles. I think these are actually done with polygons. So they're just transparent polygons the artist has laid down. Depending on your camera viewpoint, they can look wrong, like there, where they look all skinny, or right, like there, where it looks like beams of light coming through the trees. And by scrolling a very faint texture through it, you get it look like the leaves move and things like that. Okay, return to the app. Yeah, okay. Somebody's just said nobody's answering me. Sorry, Nintendo TV 64. Do you want to ask me again? Whatever the question was. Meanwhile, Chokai says, why did you switch away from the Traveller's Tales Fox logo? Right, so when we became a publisher of TT Games Publishing, once we got the Lego rights and we started publishing our games rather than developing them, we realized that the logo was so fiddly on the box art where we had it, it was difficult to read what it said. And so we decided to change have our games published, still developed by Traveller's Tales, but we made our publisher called TT Games. So to be honest, we sponsored a touring car, a racing car, and I remember going to the track and looking at the car, and it had our TT logo with the animal on it, with the TT mascot on it. As it drove past, you couldn't make out what it said at all. And so I realized if we're going to be sponsoring things, doing stuff like that, we need an easily readable logo. And so the big TT was born out of that. Now then, did Nintendo TV 64 ask his question again? I'm just looking through now. Why did you hate working on Super Monkey Ball Adventure? Was it because the game had very poorly implemented mechanics? I don't think I hated working on it. I didn't really work on it. This was the Oxford studio. So what happened with the Oxford studio is we had too many games for us to make. We were mainly based in a place called Knutsford, which is near Manchester in the United Kingdom. And there was too many games for us to make. And so there was an opportunity to buy a small team in Oxford who we could build up to make another game for us, which is what we did with Crash to Insanity. And they were very talented people with loads of brilliant ideas and everything else. But what happened was Oxford was a good 2 or 3 hours drive away from where I was based. And I had so much on at Knutsford, I just wouldn't be able to get down there too much. And when I did get down there and gave them notes, once I left, they didn't really want to do the notes. They kind of became very independent. Possibly due to the fact that I didn't, go and visit them enough or whatever else. But they saw themselves as an independent studio and saw me more like the publisher. And so whenever I had comments and things, they would kind of look to suggestions. Whereas when I make games normally, I'd say, no, you just do this. And so I became more detached from the project because I'd have loads of suggestions and ideas and they wouldn't get implemented and I didn't want to start a fight with them every single time. So I guess I was more disengaged from when they got around to doing Super Monkey Ball Adventure. And they were working directly with Sega, and Sega knew what they wanted. So I think that's why. These are all much bigger topics that I should be able to talk to. Yes, TT did make Muppet Race Mania Burby 100. We did. That was a great game. great fun. And talking about reusing, so here's an example. This wasn't a cancelled game, Muppet Race Mania, but after that we used the same sort of tech to make Toy Story Racer afterwards. So there's an example where a lot of our tech is reused, but not a cancelled game. Let's have a look. Wacky Races. So we've seen everything except for Wacky Races, which it says is playable. I'm guessing I'm going to run around a dirt track. Let's have a look. Can you give out... Right, Jeffrey44 says, can you give a shout out to Jake Sharrett, please? It's his birthday and he loves video games like Sonic, Mario at the Olympic Games. It would mean a lot to him. He's 14. Hey, Jake Sharrett, happy 14th birthday. Hope you keep enjoying classic video games like Sonic and Mario. And have a great day. Okie dokie, let's see. Do I follow the Amiga demo scene these days? I do from time to time. I do sort of follow the demo scene a bit. Generally on PC. Well, the PCs have become so powerful that I tend to just follow the 64K demos on PC because there's still some limits there. I think when you've got unlimited power, like a lot of these PCs, I know it's not unlimited, but I have, it makes demos, hard to see where new tricks and innovations are coming from. When you say, right, but you've only got 64K or even 4K to work with on the PC, some of the things they do on those are outstanding. And then, yes, I keep up with the demo scene. Even on the Sinclair Spectrum and the Commodore 64, there's still some amazing demos being done. If I had the time and inclination, I'd probably still make Amiga demos. I really enjoyed that machine and what you could do on them. Although people are so advanced with what they can do now, it's way beyond what I could keep up with, I'm sure. Quiet Afternoon wants a shout out, please. Quiet Afternoon, there you go. This is fast becoming a request show. Let me see. So this is basically what we played before as Alex the Lion. I don't remember there being hazards in the Alex the Lion version, and we're moving further across the island. So I wonder if as the levels go on, there's more and more hazards added or not. I'm not sure about that. On this version, though, there definitely seems to be... Hey, do you know what? I think it's just crashed. Yeah, it has. Can you hear the... So the reason the music is buffering... Oh, sorry, the music is repeating is that's all that's been read off the CD into the buffer. And so it can't read off the CD because it's crashed, but it's continuing to play the buffer. Excellent. So let's give this a restart. Our first crash. That wasn't bad considering how old this build is and how prototypey it was. How close was Twin Sanity to being finished, says Nyron Le Medici, maybe. On what? Do you mean on the GameCube or just general? Because it obviously shipped. So I guess you mean the GameCube. I can't remember, to be honest. I can't remember. Again, so many things. That was an Oxford, TT Oxford game. So I was less involved in that. Camman the Sorcerer says, did you guys share Madagascar assets with Toys for Bob? No. We like making everything ourselves. We make them with our own technology, our own editors. All our games, even up until now, we don't use anybody else's render technology. We develop all our technology in-house, so we don't use Unreal Engine or anything like that. We make it all ourselves, because when I suddenly want something new, or a new feature, or a new shiny effect, we can get it coded in a week instead of having to wait months and months for Unreal Engine or something to add it. That may well be diminishing returns now, but that's why we kept doing that. Okay, so I think we've seen all the levels on this. Deepest, Darkest Jungle, Stinky Swamplands. 4 in here. So there's another Wacky Races, Rafting, Animal Glide, Julian says, playable some temp mechanics. So you can see here there's probably 4 or 5 game styles that are being repeated here. So let's have a look at this one. Why does TT, this is QVIA, why does TT make only Lego games now? Again, this is opportunity cost, which I talked about earlier. We have probably about 600 people. We have probably 3.5 teams to make games with. Our games typically take about a year to make, usually 6 months prototyping and then 6 months finishing. Roughly, some take a little longer, some are a little quicker, but roughly a year per game. And we tend to release 2 Lego games a year, generally, on average, sometimes 3, sometimes 1. So to keep that all running, which we think is about as many as the market will sustain, takes 600 people. So we'd either have to hire, again, opportunity cost, hire a bigger team, which is more distractions, more things going on, And it means we wouldn't be making a Lego game, and the Lego games are frankly, and this is a business, hugely successful. If we made a different kind of game, the chances of it selling 5 or 6 million units is pretty low, especially a new IP. So we're really lucky to work on the Lego franchise and the Lego games, and to be able to make games that sell every time 5, 6 million copies. I mean, things like Lego Batman sold 14, 15 million copies. So to be able to make those games, and again, the IP is different every time. You get to work with most fun IPs. I've got to meet Doctor Who, and meet Doc Brown by working on my, fanboy IPs that I love. So yeah, it's a great gig. It covers everything. The only option really would be, I think, to make original games, and for that you'd need to be really, really sure you've got a brilliant idea. So I think that's why TT makes Lego games. Just looking through the comments. Akira says again, did you guys plan to make a story mode? Not for this game, no, I don't think so. I think this was, there may have been a rough story explaining why, the levels, these game modes open up as you complete it. But I think it was a pure party game. No story mode, because Toys for Bob had already made a story game. Let's see, Zumoni says, asking again in case you didn't see it, probably answered. Something, where does the screen dump transfer to? Yeah, good question. So I'm on a test kit here, which is just basically the same size shape as a PS2 you would normally buy, a PS2 Slim. We have other kits which plug into PCs. And so when you did a screen dump, that would appear on the PSP, on the PC. There is a possibility that the screen dump may go to the memory card. We may have written that. I can't remember if we'd written that or not. So you could screen dump to a memory card and then access it that way. But you'd still need a development system plugged into a PC to get access to the memory card. Okay. Let's see. So many questions. Which I love. This is great. I love having the opportunity to sit here and answer these questions. So many times I do a video and think, there's so much backstory to this, I just can't fit into the video. So it's great seeing you being able to just ask the questions. Why was the Tails doll chosen for Sonic R? That's a big one. Thank you, Trident Star. That's always asked. I don't know. It was just a character. Basically, all the alternative characters in Sonic R were robotic characters. So it was a robotic Tails doll, and they had the idea that it would float and move around. So it's a robot, that's what has an aerial out of its head. But I know it's become spooky. Okay, so what have we got? Rafting, placeholder artwork. Let's see what that does. Looking through. Why was LEGO Star Wars 3 so unstable? On what? That's a bug, not the great. Why was LEGO Star Wars 3 so unstable? Which platform, if you could get back to me on that one? Maybe all of them. I think LEGO Star Wars 3, I'll assume you mean on any platform. LEGO Star Wars 3 was a huge game. Massive. It took an awful lot of time. We spent a long time on it. We'd obviously made Star Wars 1 and 2 and Complete Saga. Lucas and ourselves wanted to make more Star Wars content. LEGO were making LEGO sets still. And the new films hadn't been announced, episodes 7, 8, and 9. So, and the Clone Wars TV show was popular, so we thought, we'll make that. But I felt like, what's going to make this game great? What's going to make it different? We can't just put Clone Wars in. This isn't like we've got a new film. Clone Wars content wasn't for everybody. So we really went overboard to try and make these huge hubs where you could fly between them with spaceships, and ground battle modes with real-time strategy games, and just masses and masses of content, and playable characters and streaming and all kinds of stuff. But there was still a deadline for when it had to come out, and we just probably bit off too much. And so to get everything in there and tested was just too hard. We shipped it and there was bugs. There's often bugs in LEGO games, mainly due to if you have hundreds and hundreds of characters in hundreds and hundreds of different vehicles in different situations and scenarios. It doesn't matter how big your team is. We had hundreds of QA testers testing it. You just can't test every single character in every single circumstance, which adds to the bugginess. But when you add in new real-time strategy modes and streaming hubs and all kinds of stuff like that, that went a long way to why you would have had some instabilities in there. And I apologise. And there will have been patches that will have updated that. But if you're playing on, say, a Wii, I'm not sure if there was patches for the Wii version. So, yeah. Why does Mickey Mania on the SNES have load times? Super GUI 64. Mainly, it had to unpack. It didn't have as much memory in certain areas, so it had to unpack a lot of data, and it had a much slower main processor than the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive. So it just took time unpacking. So it's not really a load time so much as unpacking all the data, so mathematically decompressing a load of data, which the Mega Drive would do faster, the Genesis, or wouldn't need to at all, because it had enough memory for it. So that's why it had load times as such. So many questions I would love to answer. How did you meet the Doctor, says Hunor Toth. I've probably pronounced that really badly, I'm sorry. How did I meet the Doctor? Well, we were making Lego Dimensions Doctor Who, and so I got invited to go to Swansea in the UK, in Wales, where they have the set where they were filming Doctor Who, and I got to take my kids. So I took my two boys to see Doctor Who. We met Peter Capaldi on the set. He was dressed as Doctor Who. He took us and my boys into the TARDIS, showed us around the TARDIS as Doctor Who, let us fiddle with the console controls on the TARDIS. It was the best day ever. Absolutely one of the perks of the job. I'm an absolute fanboy of Doctor Who anyway. So yeah, that was the story for that one. Okay, so this is there's no content here. It's just just going around in circles, nothing to collect. Not sure how Melman, Marty and Gloria have got 2 points each and I've got 0. So I'm not sure if there was something to pick up. Mr. Ross, so it was a CPU and bandwidth issue. Yes, on Mickey on the SNES, it was a CPU and bandwidth issue. That would have been an easier way of saying it. Jack Newman says, isn't the Doctor Who set in Cardiff? Yes, what did I say? Did I say Swansea? I meant Cardiff, if I said the wrong thing. Yes, it's definitely Cardiff. Mikaluska Sum says, do I have any more Crash Unlimited or Twinsanity content in the future? I have prototype builds. They aren't of levels you wouldn't have seen, so there's not any missing sections that, so far as I could see. But again, maybe I'll do a live stream with a prototype because there's lots to look through on them, and maybe you guys can point out stuff that may be different from the final one that I wouldn't necessarily be clued up on. Lord Megatron is asking for an answer. I don't know what you asked, Lord Megatron. I'm going to scroll up the comments and see. I can't see your question, Lord Megatron. So if you want to ask it again, I'll try and answer it this time. There's so many questions. It's so difficult to answer them all. Can you show some of your in-house tools, says the creator. Do you mean the in-house tools used to make the early games? I assume you do, in which case I have a couple of things I dug up. Some PC tools from the Genesis and Mega Drive days, which are super nerdy, but I'll do a video on them at some point for sure. Lord Megatron, why was the Hoover Dam level cut from Transformers? Also, why was Ratchet cut from the game? Modders found his character model with a few functioning animations. Time. It's one of those games where we had a short timeline anyway for the game, and the movie was coming out, and you have to get the thing made in time for the movie. So Hoover Dam External was just too much work to get finished in time, so we decided to cut it. This happens a lot in games when you've got deadlines to meet. You look ahead and think there's no way we're going to do this unless we cut one of these levels. So we could easily drop it and keep the storyline running, whereas other levels we'd have to keep for the story. So that's why it was dropped. Ratchet would have been the same thing. Probably he was a playable character and we just didn't have time to polish him. I think. Let's see, where are we at? Deepest, Darkest. Were we doing that? I've confused myself now. We did that one. We did that one. Animal Crochet. Rafting. Did we do all these? I'm not going to do Julian Says. Did we do Julian Says? I can't tell. We did. Okay. I'm confusing myself now. We just did rafting. Okay, I know where we're at. Okay. Right. So yes, we did rafting. We did Wacky Racers 4. Animal Glide 3. Let's have a look at this one. I'm getting really confused. It's swapping back and forth in the comments. But I'm a novice. I've never done this streaming lark before, so you have to bear with. Were there any games that you had to release which were basically completely unfinished, similar to Sonic 06, Autumn, Clearwater? Were there any games that you had to release that were basically completely unfinished? No, I don't think so. I don't think we ever released a game that was completely unfinished. Unless you want to let me know in the comments. I don't think there was any games I released that I wasn't particularly happy with. I think Rascal was probably the only game released that I wasn't happy with. That's a whole different story, which we'll get to. Okay, this looks like, okay, so this is probably like the boat. There's no launch mechanism. I'm going to just fly into the air, and there's probably nothing to glide to pick up. Nice scenery. Oh, interesting. I don't know what that numbers on the wall is referring to over there. It looks like there's numbers in the light beams there. I'm not even sure if there's anywhere to land. Am I meant to go this way, maybe? No, I'm asking you guys. You've never seen this before in your lives. To be fair, nor have I. I'm sure I have, when I was directing the game. Okay, so I'm going to go into the debugger and have a look around here. It doesn't look like there's much here, but I'm curious what those numbers are. Oh, I see. So they're the scores, I guess. So I don't know if whether you're meant to fly through those beams eventually to get the score, or what. Nice looking level though, this section. Let's go back. Let's have a quick look in the comments. Jack Smith says, what was your opinion on Twinsanity? Twinsanity had some amazing parts. The comedy was amazing. The animation was great. The ideas of having the characters team up was brilliant, and fighting as they rolled. There's some brilliant things in there. There was a ton of things gameplay-wise that I fed back on that never got changed, to do with the camera, to do with the movement, to do with the shadow. Sometimes you jump and the shadow from Sonic wouldn't appear on the platforms you were jumping to. And with a platform game that's as severely challenging as Sonic, that made it even worse. So it was frustrating to me. There was brilliance there, and I tried to direct it, but it was, like I alluded to earlier, it was difficult in some areas with the team. I'm sure the team found the same issues with me. It's a two-way street. So I liked it, generally. I think it was extremely clever, brilliant design, brilliant animation, really, really great. Implementation could have been a little sharper. And they refused to use our game technology. They used their own engine, which again, cost them so much time and effort, made it very hard for us to help with bugs and things like that. Okay, so Rafting, Animal Glide 3, Julian says, we'll have a quick look. I'm loath to look because this one was a little dull, but let's see. VHS Gamer 99 asks if I had a prototype GameCube disc. I don't believe I did, no. I tended to play, so when I got builds, I tended to play on certain consoles. So, for instance, I would play on the PlayStation 2. That would be my console of choice. If we were making a game that was on multiple consoles, I'd always play it and give feedback and notes and everything on the PS2. And then when we got to the next generation of the console, the PS3 and the Xbox 360, I would play on the Xbox. I preferred the Xbox 360 to the PS3 at the time, so I'd always play on the Xbox. And then I moved back to the PS4. So I would have a favorite console, which meant that I wouldn't see other console versions really. I just trusted that the team, because I just didn't have time. I was managing 4 different games at a time, doing all the feedback notes, design. Oftentimes I'd be doing the particle effects and adding those to the gameplay. Oftentimes I'd be programming the games. So I'd be very, very busy. So a lot of the time I wouldn't get to see the ports. And sometimes I'd see a port of a game, especially if it was to a lower console. And it would frustrate me because I knew we couldn't do it better than that, but I knew I'd just waste so much time giving feedback and notes on things that I knew we wouldn't be able to fix. So yeah, I had my console of choice for each generation, and I'd play and give notes on that console, and then I trust our hardware team to go and port it to the other consoles. Robot Ninja Pirate says, were there any licensed titles you wanted to make a game for that you couldn't? As in you weren't offered, not that you turned down for there's definitely things I'd love to make Lego games for that we couldn't get the rights to, either because a company like Mega Bloks would have them or the rights were too adult for Lego. So yeah, definitely there's things. I really originally wanted to make a Star Wars game. This is before we did Lego Star Wars. And we pitched LucasArts to make we took the Haven demo of the technology for flying between planets and everything and pitched them a Star Wars game based on the original movies. But the guy I pitched it to left shortly afterwards, so we didn't get to do that. But then anyway, about a year later, Lego Star Wars happened, so it was all good. We also pitched a Hobbit game. I remember we made a brilliant demo on the Xbox for not a Lego Hobbit game, but for a Hobbit game when the movie was first announced, back in 2009 probably. We made an amazing Hobbit prototype, which was actually using all Lord of the Rings assets because there was no Hobbit assets around. So we made a load of Lord of the Rings movie game tie-ins, photorealistic, looked like a movie, stealth mechanics, all kinds of amazing stuff. I've still got the prototype somewhere. And I flew over to New Zealand. I went from the UK. It took me 39 hours to get there. I was there for 2 days just to pitch the game to Peter Jackson and Guillermo del Toro when he was still attached. And then the movie got pushed back a year. Various other decisions beyond our control meant we weren't to make that game. And it ended up being a good thing. We wouldn't have had the team to be able to make the other games we made. Again, the opportunity cost of making the Hobbit game versus other Lego games would have meant there was lots of Lego games we wouldn't have been able to make. And in the end, the Hobbit movies weren't really as good as I'd hoped them to be. So I think we dodged a bullet in the end. So there's a little bit on Hobbit. These are interesting. What are these fruit? Anyone know what these fruit are? Are they giant cherries? Or... I don't know. I'm really not sure what these are. Probably some really obvious fruit. They're not tomatoes, I'm sure. I'm going to say giant cherries. I tell you what. Oh, I see. See, again, you see, this is later on in the game, and there's roots sticking out that you get stuck on. So there definitely seems to be a difficulty curve on this. On these sections. The further you get down the island, the more difficult the sections become, the more hazards they are. Somebody's just asked me, Stefan has asked me, Negreo, I think his name is, least favourite Lego game. Good question. Least favourite Lego game. I'm going to have to think on that for a minute. So I like a lot of them. I'm assuming you made that we made. Least favourite Lego game that we made. And I'm going to only count the ones I've worked on. Least favourite. I think the one I wanted to make the least was Lego Indiana Jones 2. I just didn't see a need for that game. We'd made Lego Indiana Jones, it had the 3 movies, the 4th movie came out. I think when we launched the first game, so the 4th movie was now a year old or something, and I just didn't see the need for Lego Indiana Jones 2, so I decided to make it a test bed for all kinds of new technology. So we had the first dynamic split screen mode where the screen would tear in 2-player mode if you moved apart. We changed the front end, so you had Lego boxes full of Lego you had to collect. We had lots of little bite-sized Lego levels. Instead of great big enormous ones, we had a level editor. You could build your own levels and play them. We had vehicle sections that you would drive around in a lot. So what we got out of that, from the Lego editor, level editor, we got to reuse that on Lego Harry Potter, and it became Lego Worlds. The vehicle sections made our in-game vehicles generally better, and the dynamic split screen was then used in all the other games. And the things that didn't work, like the bite-sized level sizes and the sort of the Lego box front end, we just sort of dropped. So I used it as an experiment. Sold okay, did okay. A lot of people liked the game. I liked the game, but it was a lot of experimental stuff. Okay, I think we've looked at all these now. I'm going to say we have. And let's just see if there's one more section. Menacing Mountains. So there's definitely a story going on here. We're ending up at the sort of the dark end. So it's kind of roughly following the plot of the movie. So I'd imagine these would open. Somebody's just asked, the Puzzle Master 64, do you plan on doing backups of your prototypes in case they rot? Yes. Yes, I was doing that yesterday, in fact. I had to buy myself a CD drive, a DVD drive for my PC because it didn't have one. And I was trying to back up anything that I could that looked like it was. I mean, some I can't do because of the format on the disc is more tricky. But the ones I can, I'm trying to preserve for sure. Okay, let's have a quick look in these. Julian says, Nintendo 64 or TV64 says, any reasons Crash Nitro Kart and Crash Tag Team Racing changed developers from Traveller's Tales to Vicarious Visions and Radical Entertainment, respectively? Again, I would probably think it was opportunity cost. We probably felt, or they had, kart racing technology already, which we didn't have. Or they were cheaper, to be honest. The price becomes a big deal when you're making these games, especially when they're, not tried and tested game formats. So cost, competition, and opportunity costs. As in, did we have something better to do? I don't remember us ever pitching for Nitro Kart. We did have, I think, there was a kart racer for Crash we were looking at. I found a design document for Crash Rally. Mostly just text, there wasn't really any pictures in there. But yeah, there was a Crash Rally game we were potentially going to make. I could do a video on at some point. So this is another Julian Says where the camera's all wrong and it's just set up waiting for the gameplay to go in. So we'll leave that. I'll have a look at the editors soon. Let's just get these last couple of levels. Scotty says, were you involved in the Sonic R port for PS2 and GameCube? I wasn't, as much as it's my company and I employed a guy called Steve who did the ports, and so I would help him out if he got stuck or anything. But again, he was left to his devices. He doesn't need a lot of supervising. He added a few extra environmental effects and things which were fine, that I liked. So I was responsible, but wasn't super involved beyond making the original game. So that's Julian Says, Animal Crochet. Playable, it says. Well, we haven't seen a crochet game, so I wonder if it is actually playable or if it's just somebody running around again. Let's have a look. Game Hut, 2 questions from Kiki Games 1. What is your favourite Nintendo console, and what's your favourite console to develop for? My favourite Nintendo console, I think, was the original SNES. I loved it, but I am really partial to the Switch. I think that's a great console too. Which favourite console to develop for? I think the Sega Genesis, the Sega Mega Drive, I really enjoyed. Now you've got to remember, I moved away from coding. So, I did Sonic R on the Saturn, and I did code Haven on the PS2, was probably the last game I coded. The problem with coding was you were responsible for any bugs. So when we go into submissions and things, I had to be around 15 hours a day fixing bugs and things. Once I stopped coding, it meant that I could direct more and feedback, we could do more games. So as a direct result, the company got much, much bigger once I stopped coding and got other people to do all the coding. I would just design and develop and do all the notes and the direction. So I didn't code on that many consoles. PS2 was fine. PS1 was all right. I didn't really mess with the hardware much on those consoles. So the Saturn was the last hardware I really messed with, which I liked. And the Genesis, going back and doing the Sega Sonic 3D Director's Cut, was great fun, going back to the Genesis. Hey look, got some gameplay. Oh, there's shells in this section. Not shells. They're like little rolled up bugs. Let's see what happens. So if I press... Oh, it's a top-down view. Okay, so you can get a top-down view. Oh, okay. Oh, it's golf. So you hit, boop, and through it goes. So there is... Okay. So we do have... And I didn't do anything then. I don't know if that's a replay. Let's see what happens. Okay. No, it's just on the loop. Yeah, okay. Oh, is this the other players having a go, maybe? Yeah, it is. I think. Let's just see. All right, so it's me again. Right, so I'm skipper, I think. So you just saw everybody else having a go. So I'm not sure where I'm meant to go next. I guess through the green, through there? No idea how to do that. So look. Pow. Oh, physics. Bit of physics going on there. But I didn't get it through the legs there. Armando says, what's your opinion on Valve not making games anymore for almost 10 years? Well, we don't know they're not making games anymore. They made the lab, didn't they? Portal the lab in VR. And they say they're working on 3 VR games. So I'm hoping, because I'm a massive Valve fan, I'm a massive Portal fan, I'm hoping they are working on games still. And we just haven't seen them. It takes a long time. James Cameron still hasn't sequeled Avatar. Avatar was 12 years after his last film, and he still hasn't sequeled it. It's going to be 11 years after the last Avatar. So just because they're spending 10 years making games, if they are making games quietly, I'm quite happy with that. I'll wait 10 years for a Half-Life 3 VR, wouldn't you? So I'm hoping they're still making games. Jeffrey44 says, which one are you, the fat penguin? They're all pretty fat, but yeah, I'm Skipper, I think. It's very hard to tell. This is interesting, and this is the only section whereby the AI are taking their turns. Yes, it is croquet, Mr. Democracy. It is croquet, not golf. Pokemon Fan 18, do you more about the F1 racing game before it was cancelled and moved to Sonic R? I don't have much more to say on that one. That was what I said in the video. I did make a video about the F1 game very briefly, about the models. We just didn't really get very far at all. We were going to use the driving model from their Sega Indy 500 arcade machine. I remember that. We had the Indy 500 arcade machine and its source code to use the driver model for the F1 racing game. So what we had going on was I was writing an engine to display the graphics. Someone else was porting the driving model from Indy 500 arcade to the Saturn, and somebody was building some track models. And that's as far as we got. Got cancelled before, or moved on to Sonic R after that. Okay, can I get through here? I'm going to hit it more gently. No. Okay. This is a bit dull, this one. But let me answer questions while the AI is playing. Tooney Loon says, you can't play the Japanese version of Mickey Manor on a Sega Genesis, but if you change the console region back to Japan using an emulator when the game is running, you can play it. That's right, I put in code there to stop you, but I knew people would have emulators or would modify their consoles. At the time, you didn't have an emulator, but you could put a switch on your console that would switch it between Japanese, American, and European modes. So I knew people could switch consoles, because that's what I would do. And so I put a cheeky little message in there. If you did cheat, it would call you out for it. Cute Puppy 351. Is the soundtrack in this game completely unheard of? Doesn't sound like any Madagascar music I've heard. Some of it is from Crash Bandicoot, Wrath of Cortex. This I don't recognise. Maybe someone in the comments can tell me. All right, I think this is as far as this level goes, so I'll quit out of it. Oh, someone wanted a free cam of the golf area. E.E. McCutcheon wanted a free cam of the golf area, so I'll do that real quick. Only take a second. Croquet. Sorry, croquet, not golf. My bad. Mike, I'm not going to say your surname, because I'll offend you, I'm sure, by pronouncing it badly. But Mike says, did you like the Wii U? No, I did not. Underpowered, horrendous design, the worst screen, the worst touch input. I did not like that console at all. I owned one. In fact, I have the special edition, was it Wind Waker re-release Wii U with the cool stuff? So I owned two, in fact, but I did not like it. That's why I love the Switch. The Switch is what the Wii U should have been. So well done, Nintendo, for sorting it out. This is the area. Oh look, so you've got eyes. Now they'll be are they textures? They're animated textures, I think, in there. In this area. It's the mountains. It's the light beams. And the hazards. Turn back, whatever that says. Oh, this is from the movie, because you're getting Predator side. So there you go. That's a quick fly around that section. PS3 is better than Wii U, maybe. Map locked up. I think so. I think power-wise, we were really caught out. We were making Lego City Undercover for the Wii U, and the hardware spec we were told is not what shipped. So from my memory is correct, if my memory is correct, I think the PlayStation 3 had come out, the Xbox 360 had come out, and the Wii U came out and really was nowhere near the power of them. And we assumed it would be, and we built the game for that, and it never shipped that way. It caused us an awful lot of problems, having to port it to what the spec ended up being, because it was a launch game. What have we done here? Julian says, Animal Croquet. Did we look at Julian says? Man, my memory's so bad. Let's have a look at it. I don't know. The problem with the chat is it's about 30 seconds behind, so I don't want to sit and wait 30 seconds to have you correct me on what I've looked at. It's just quicker just to load it and look at it again. Christian Long says, hello John, I'm a fan of your work, the Sonic games. It's quite an honour to talk to you. It's not an honour to talk to me, mate. I'm just a guy. Don't worry about it. I'm just a guy making games and got paid for it, so I'm just doing what I love. I think we did look at, well, maybe we didn't look at this. I'm going to have a quick look. Anyway, sorry if I'm repeating myself. Fusa territory with some scary looking plants. This is all based on the movie. Wheel of Misfortune again. Again, no gameplay here, just the art. Quick look at the art. Enrique Dematos says, since you worked on Transformers, do you know anything about the weird, bloody red textured relative for Bumblebee titles, Evil Bumblebee, in the game files? Yes, I do. In fact, I have an early prototype that actually has an Evil Bumblebee model in it, animating. So maybe I'll show you that at some point. Right, Menacing Mountains. Julian says, I think Rafting 3 we didn't see. I think that's the only thing we haven't seen, so let's have a look. Kiro says, what was the first game you worked on? The first game I worked on that was published was Leander. That wasn't published would have been something. I think I made a game at school on the Commodore VIC-20 called Indiana Fred and the House of Doom, which was a single screen platform game that I did for my O-level, which was, you know, some exam in computer studies at school. Indiana Fred and the House of Doom. Can't imagine where I got that title from. I wish I still had it, but I don't. I have a lot of my old games, but not that one. Okay, so this is a rafting section. This looks pretty complete. Got the nice art going on. Got the deadly mines. Now see, now I'm playing this, I realise that there were those hazards in the early levels. So it isn't that the hazards get more tricky as we go on, I'm sure. I just hadn't been noticing them. Sam Vaughan says, was there a version of Bugs Life planned for the Sega Saturn? Not as far as I remember, no. No Bugs Life for Sega Saturn. Because, you know, Toy Story was before. Was Toy Story? Yeah, Toy Story was before Bugs Life. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I can see. Yeah, the timing is kind of Bugs Life. No, the Saturn had died by the time we were doing that, I think. Do you still have the SGI equipment? Tech Guy 348 says, do you still have the SGI? No, I don't. Don't have the SGI equipment used to make Sonic R. I think I read somewhere that Larry whatever Junior face, Larry Bundy, I'm sure he put in something in the comments on one of my videos saying he collected those machines, or he had an old one of those, so he may have one. Maybe he can do a video on that. Or maybe I've got that completely wrong and my memory's failing me at my grand old age. Let's see. Cute Puppy 351. Why is the void in this game sometimes green? Is it something related to create the scenery? I've seen Half-Life 2 do that too. I'm not sure why. Quite often we used a really bright background color, so we could see holes in the polygons or in the terrain. So if we've got a level and we suddenly see green cracks appearing in the background, we know that we've not filled in all the sky dome, or there's a problem with the render or something like that. So quite often that's why we'd use a bright color in the background. Stephen Black says, can somebody tell me if John has the prototype of Gone to Bit Coco, please? I don't believe so. I think there was stuff that was cut before I ever got to see a prototype. So again, I was at a different location to Oxford, so they would try things out, and if they didn't burn it onto a disc for me, I wouldn't have it. Now, I may have had it on an early prototype disc that I haven't found yet, maybe, but nothing I've found shows those levels. I've got an early Nina Rooftops test, so it's a test level for Nina, which is extremely hard on the Rooftops level, but I don't have it Gone a Bit Coco level. I'm Alex at the moment in this level, Jeffrey 44, and I'm only half playing, I've got to say, because I'm trying to stay on top of these. Why green and not pink? Good question. I think green is just I mean, you've got to remember when we were making games, CRTs were still a thing, and sort of reddish colours didn't work so well on CRTs. They tended to colour bleed and things like that. So I think green was just a more obvious colour to see. That's why they use green for chroma keying or blue rather than pink. And also pink can show up in colours like flowers and particles. A very bright green is less likely to show up. This is a cool lift section actually. Looks nice. Hannah Stroud says, are you still in touch with anyone who might have additional prototypes? I have asked around various people and they don't seem to have. If you know of anyone who might have them that I can be in touch with, I will be glad to try and dig them out from them. But yeah, I've talked to some people and I haven't managed to find some. JJMFDL says, would you ever make a Lego video game at least partially based on the young Indiana Jones Chronicles? We well, yeah, we didn't do, I don't think so, no. Unless they remade it, I guess. Well, let's see. Zoomone, it's not the CRTs, it's the composite video. I thought you guys use RGB, not composite. No, there's a thing on CRTs called color bleed. It's worse on composite video, but the color red on CRTs would bleed. So you wouldn't use it for text or anything like that, on videos or video games, because there was a thing called color bleed. So you tended to avoid red on anything important in red on video games, on CRTs that is, and it's amplified, it's made worse by composite video. Right, should we have a look, let's find an area, should we have a look at the editors and see if there's anything in there? Or should we call it a day? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. In the meantime, I'll load up some editors. Animal Croquet. Yeah, Lavender the Great. I think we've gone through the entire thing now. I think you're right. So, let me know. Do we want to quit? Or do we want to look at some editors? In the meantime, I'll look at some editors. Particle positioner, we've done a video on. I'm working on the sort of more technical coding sequence video for the particle editor to show how it was actually coded. So hopefully that'll be up in the next week. Let's have a look at the grass editor. This may or may not crash. It could well crash. I haven't looked at any of these beforehand. I don't know if it's even set up to do grass. Let's see what happens when I do something with it. Instant select grass blades. Oh, there you go, some grass. So the grass editor allowed us to place grass, which would then, let me see if this works. See if it's, yeah. Yeah, so it would let me place grass that is interactive. Oh, some people want to see, keep going, look through the editors, editor. Okay, so we'll look at some editors. So this is the grass editor. So rather than the artist have to place grass everywhere and do all that kind of tedious stuff on every single level, we did an editor where you could give a graphic, which would just be a simple model of some blades of grass, and then you could just place it in the level. And then it would sway automatically. We could run wind through it and things like that. If we go back to the grass editor here, we could then move that around, rotate it, place it. We could change the size. So the bigger it is, the more spread out the grass would be. So it would be less clumped together and cover a bigger area. You can see it reacts to the terrain. So the artist wouldn't have to place it on the terrain. And also you could make it interactive. So it's hard to read. Clump, terraining, wind, collide with, can't see, collide with layer. I'm just seeing if this, I'm finding it really hard to read these menus because obviously it's a wind mode. There would be, I'm sure there was a mode where you could interact. As you ran through the grass would deform and move out the way. Maybe that's not on this version. Oh, look, you can do it live. So yeah, so that's, yeah. And I guess I could use a different instance. So again, the instance is from the models. It's different grass blades. So that's a different one. So what that looks like. Okay, so they're less grass bladey and more flowers. And so there's too many of those. So you can just delete and just have a few. And you see how they change in size. The closer they are to the center, and then the further they are from the center, the smaller they are. I'd imagine there's all kinds of modes for playing with sizes. Fade, wind. Oh, there you are, clump sizes. So you can tell it how small is the smallest. So the smallest they can be in the distance, the biggest. So flowers could be a bit smaller. Bend height, so where they'd bend in the wind. So again, we just would give our people as many tools as possible to making games as quick and easy as possible. Oh look, this is all, you can see all these things are placed in the grass editor. All this grass around here. So they've used loads and loads of it to get all this nice grass, and they'll have done it really quickly. They'll have just been able to place all that, whereas to model it all would be much slower. I mean, it fades out on a distance, so it's good for load balancing if the grass gets too far away. We used it a lot on Haven. There was a lot of big levels on Haven, and to populate it. It wasn't just grass, you could do it with stones, any kind of incidental detail. Obviously, you wouldn't get stones blowing in the wind. But it meant you could add an awful lot of nice interactive detail pretty cheaply. Let's see. Can you please stress test the PS2? How many particles can the console handle? I'll talk about that in my video coming up, Coding Secrets. Keep a lookout. If you want to know when that comes out, subscribe and click the notify bell, which is the new thing that everyone has to do now. Cute Puppy 351 says, Finding Nemo was a bad game. It was frustrating. Did you actually work on that game? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It was a team that I supervised. I didn't do a lot of design on that one. I thought it was fine. I mean, you've got to remember, I don't know when you played it, whether you played it when it first came out or whether you've played it more recently, how games play is very different now. How people expect games to play is very different now. You look at movies, the number of cuts and edits per second or per minute now is vastly more than the movies were 20, 30, 40 years ago. So the nature of games also changes. So what we find very frustrating now, back in the day, we wouldn't find frustrating at all. That's why it's difficult. I had people asking me, what do you think of what people think about Sonic 3D and Sonic R? When they came out, they were revolutionary games, and there wasn't games like them, and they were fine, which is why they got reasonable review scores. Looking back, they were extremely limited and have big problems. But at the time, you've got to compare it with what else was out there at the time. And they were fine for the time. So, yes. Let me see. Grass editor, particle positioner, sound editor I won't mess with, camera editor I think was to do with setting up different cameras for cutscenes which aren't in here. Part editor, I can try it. The chance of this crashing is pretty high. Let's see if there's any objects. So part editor, basically with 3D particles. I think this is going to crash. I'll try adding a type. Instance, so this is the important thing. Things scene. Yeah, you see there's no instances to select. So a part would be, the artist would make a model like a rock, and then a part editor would allow you to smash a rock and see all the parts in 3D as 3D models rather than 2D polygons like the particles bounce around the place. But to do that, the artist had to put the models in the scene, and there aren't any in this scene. So I can't show the part editor on this particular build. Maybe there's another build with a menu in it somewhere. Pickup location editor, I think that's if you were dropping coins and things. Again, I don't think, it's not set up for this particular game. Real-time light editor, don't know. Don't know if the characters are using real-time lighting. Let's have a look. Oh, there we go. You can see that we have, are there any lights in the scene? There's an ambient light in this scene. So this was a real-time light editor, so we could add lights to the levels. So for instance, if you put in a particle flame, you could add a light to it. So let's see. We'll add a new light, which is a point light. And you can see here as I move around, it's not the best example because it's daytime. But hopefully you can see there that the light is affecting Melman there. Let's see if there's any properties. Colour. Let's make it a different colour, so you could make it kind of orangey. Flicker light options. Okay, so you can't flicker it. We did have options to make lights flicker. I'm not sure why, what needed to be set up for that. They can cast a shadow and has specular. Interesting. I'll try turning them on. Don't know if they will. So now the light has gone a bit more yellow. You can see. Not sure it's casting a shadow. But again, a lot of the stuff had to be set up in code for things like shadow casting. Let's see if this crashes or... Right, so it's not casting a shadow. But there is a light there. You can see it on his back now as he walks past. Let's see if I can get it any brighter. Again, let me know in the comments, or if I post this whole video up in the comments of that, whether you want a more detailed version of this, and I'll try and find... All right, so you've got a radius and a fall off, so you can change parts of the light. Oh, there's fog, so I can change the fog effect by the looks of it too. Fog mode selection. Spherical fog for certain radius, so we could fog things out in the distance. Wow, this is looking scary, scarily complicated. Triangle, delete, up, lock, adjust. Can we? All right, so that's the radius of the light. So that's how much effect the light will have. Now, this only, with the light editor, it only affects models in the game. It doesn't affect the backgrounds or anything else because we get the artists to light them themselves. But we wouldn't, it's just too expensive to light all the thousands of polygons in the background scenery. But for the characters who, you know, if they're carrying a torch around, you want to see them affected by the light, or if they go near a light, they would do that. And the artist could bake lighting into the levels as well, so we didn't need it to affect the whole chunk of levels. Yeah, I'm not sure about this light. I'm not sure there's a lot I can do with it. There's fall off. So fall off is how quickly it gets darker on the radius. So that might affect Melman more than it was. I can't see anything that will make it brighter. Oh, multiply maybe does. Don't know what that does. Oh, there you go. That's pretty bright. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, let's reduce the fall off. The size. Is that right? Does that? Yeah, so I'm going to place it on the level there. Let's go back into the app. And you see he's being lit quite nicely on the side there. But you see now it's not affecting him? Let's move the camera around. Let's run toward the camera a bit. Yeah, you see now I'm in range. It's getting pretty bright. And you see as I run past, the light's affecting him live, as it were. It's quite difficult to see with this particular camera position. You can see there it's on the side of him as I rotate the camera around. And as he runs past the light, it'll move and shine on his back. There you go, lighting editor. What other editors were there? Camera editor, I think. So sound editor was for placing sounds in the level. So we could, if there was a waterfall, we could place a sound effect. So as you approach the waterfall, you'd hear it. And then if there was the sea, the waves crashing, things like that. So that's what the sound editor was for. That thing at the bottom probably shows the used memory of sounds loading in and out. God, this looks very complicated. Yes, I think that's perhaps a whole different video. Camera editor, let's have a quick look. I'm not sure. I think cameras, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the camera editor was for. Right, okay, I've placed the camera. Has pivot contract. So I guess this is for, I'm not sure if it's going to work. Let's have a quick play. I think this is for if you had directed cameras. So if you went into a cave or something, as you went in the entrance, it would cut then to a camera in the cave showing a different viewpoint. So I think that's what it was set up to do. What I'm going to do now, I've got a, how are we doing? Is there any more questions I've realised I've not had any lunch yet. It's lunchtime here. It's nearly 2 o'clock. Is there any questions you want to ask about any of this right now? Oh, wait. Okay. Mr. Ross says, I think you should answer the Hoover Dam question. They are dying. It says, okay, so Simixel says, can you play the Hoover Dam levels in a live stream? Yes, I can. Not right now. I'll do a different one. Have you ever been to Hoover Dam? I actually want to know. Yes, I have been to Hoover Dam. It's amazing. It's well worth going if you're anywhere nearby. Thanks, Jeffrey43. Chalk Ice, could you bend the ear of other game studio heads and try and get them to stream LOL? I don't know a lot of them, but they totally should. I mean, you know, you see on movies, you get a lot of director commentaries or behind-the-scenes videos or documentaries on how it was made. There's so much on movies that the public can find out about how things were made. And I was watching an episode, you know, Star Wars episode 4 documentary the other day on YouTube and things like that. And people don't do it for games. The people who make the games, really, they don't really communicate. And I thought, well, why not? Why not get on YouTube, document this stuff for posterity, if nothing else? You know, it was stuff that, you know, was, you know, going to get lost in time otherwise. And then it turned out people were quite interested in knowing about this stuff. So, yeah, I'd love more people to talk in detail about the games. E.E. McCutcheon says, where did you get the voice lines for the prototype? I guess we took them either from Activision supplied them or from the movie, I guess, because it's behind closed doors, so there wasn't any issues. Until we'd finished the game and got the voice actors in, there wasn't any issues using the voice lines from the movie. Patreanaus2 says, does it have to specifically be about Madagascar? I'm not sure what that means. Maybe he means the live stream. Maybe he's asking, does the live stream have to be about Madagascar? Please end the stream with a song. A song. You want me to sing? I'm not going to sing. I'm not sure what song. I'll figure out an ending thing at some point. I haven't got an ending thing yet, but I'll figure out one. Does the Hoover Dam PC files exist? Does it have the audio files and cutscenes? I don't know, Lord Megatron. I don't know if the Hoover Dam PC files exist. I know I've got a build with them on. I don't know if the GSC file you are after even exists anymore. GSC was our own proprietary format for the file format. I could have a look. Again, even if it does, I wouldn't be able to release it anyway. But I do know what, I appreciate what you're trying to do. It just comes down to who owns this stuff. Dermot Sweeney says, been trying to stream a development diary for my current project. Lots of fun and the feedback has been great. Brilliant. That's a great thing to do. Development diary, of course. People do development diaries. That's true when they're working on a game. They tend not to do stuff for the games they've already done back in the past, but definitely we should build up a database or we should build up a deposit of media as people are making game development diaries a lot for games they're currently working on, especially indie ones. Paper Mario TTY fan says, I've lost it now. It said something about SpongeBob. If you could, would you have made a Lego SpongeBob game and base it off the movie or random episodes of the series? We looked at it. Lego had a deal with SpongeBob. We did look at a Lego SpongeBob game. In the end, it didn't go ahead, and we didn't do any work on it, but we did discuss it. Big Bang Bot says the voice lines seem like they're from the Toys from Bob Madagascar game. Yep, that's probably right. How can you talk about all of this? In the same way as someone asks George Lucas about Star Wars. You know, he can talk about Star Wars. Just because Disney owns it doesn't mean he can't talk about it. Does no NDA prohibit it? No, I don't think so. I'm not giving away anything that isn't reasonably public domain or anecdotal. I don't sign anything that says I'm not allowed to talk about a game that's already out or my experience in developing the game. Anything else about Pugsy Part 2 you could share, John, says Stu Blad. Pugsy Part 2 didn't really get off the ground. I think because Pugsy 1 was commercially a failure. So that's a bit of a shame. So we didn't really even look at it. Terev says, sing about programming nightmares, John. I'm not going to sing. You really don't want me to sing. Super Gooey 64. Did Bram Stoker's Dracula on the Genesis and SNES run on the same engine as Leander? No, it didn't. We wrote a new engine, intended to write new engines for every game we made for a long time. Certainly on all the 16-bit consoles, we just started from scratch each time to get the best out of the console, because techniques, we learnt new stuff, there was new techniques, so we wanted to start again. Did this prototype have a title and release date planned, or was it undecided? I'm sure it had that's VHS Gamer 99. I'm sure it had a release date planned. The title was probably Madagascar Party. This build is from sometime in, I think it was the end of 2005. So I'm trying to remember how quickly DVDs came out for things and whether it would have come out with the DVD release, whether that was a year later at the time. I know DVD releases are really soon now. But the release date clearly would have been a good few months after this build, so it wouldn't have been for Christmas or for vacation 2005, it would have been probably 2006. Did you work on the Madagascar game that did come out? No, I didn't. So Keiko or Kako, I didn't. Wyatt James, do you still have professional CRT monitors? No, got rid of them all. This is the problem, there's so much hardware we got rid of that would be brilliant now. But you go through that stage of it just being dated and horrible and cluttering up the office and taking up too much space. I'm sure there's a ton of stuff I wish I had left, that I'd kept. Can you do a coding secret on the anti-piracy Pugsy? Maybe, it's on my list, Pokemon Fan 18. It's just not, it wouldn't be a very long coding secret. It wasn't a very in-depth thing. But I might do it on anti-piracy in general. Lord Megatron is pleading for these files. Like I said, I don't even know if I've got the file, so it's a mute point at the minute. Pablo MK7, I like creating mods for games, so I'm very interested on what do you think about people modding your games to add more content. I'm fine with it. As long as they're, 5, 6, 7 years old already, the game, then I'm absolutely fine with people modding stuff. It's a great way to learn to code, as long as they're not trying to make money out of it. So when you start charging for mods, it starts becoming a little bit grey area, but I'm generally fine with it. Let's see. Virix Dreamcore says, have you ever had to work with middleware tools such as WWise? No, not really. Not a whole lot of middleware. I'm trying to think. Middleware tools. The only middlewares, no, not middleware. Development systems, not really middleware. We didn't even use Havoc for physics. We wrote our own physics engine and everything. Let's see. So many questions. Prototype for Wrath of Cortex, Akira. I don't have one. I've looked everywhere. It's the one I have a demo, I have that video of it that I've shown. I cannot find a prototype for Wrath of Cortex anywhere. Or Finding Nemo. Cody Husky, thinking on doing a technical video on this particle engine. Yes, that's going to be coming out next week, or as soon as I can get it made. Lord Megatron says, Transformers the game has a big modding community now. That's amazing. I love that game. I know it reviewed horribly. I know. Transformers the video game, etc. Given the time we had on a PS2 with fully destructible backgrounds and buildings and everything else, as my 12-year-old kid loved playing Transformers the game. It sold really well. It was made for a certain audience. I know the fanboys were not fans, which I also get. But it was meant for a certain audience, and I think we tried a lot of technical stuff at the time. It wasn't very well balanced. It was pretty hard to play. I know there's issues with it, but I still don't hate Transformers. A Common Creeper, no, I don't have any Muppet Race Mania stuff at the moment. If I find some, I'll let you know. What do you think about Patronus 2 says, what do you think about DRM-free releases of games? I'm not sure, I don't know. I mean, the reason there's DRM is to stop people pirating games. And the reason for stopping people pirating games is it takes money away from the people who made the games. If everyone pirated games, you wouldn't have any games made. So, it's expensive. Employing 600 people to make a video game or video games is expensive. And that money has to come from somewhere. Buying licenses is expensive. And if everyone pirated games, there just wouldn't be a market for it. It's like with music. It's like with any form of media. There's people do pirate music and do pirate films, but that then makes it more expensive for other people because someone has to pay for it all. Mystic Compot Cheddar says, did you put anti-piracy stuff in the newer games? When I stopped coding the games, I really stopped putting in all the sort of Easter eggs and anti-piracy fun stuff. So not so much in the newer games. Autumn Clearwater, any thoughts on remastering the Lego games or maybe a collection of the Lego games? That'd be cool to do. I think it's a massive job to do it. Remastering the Lego, any game is a huge job, and they're huge games. But maybe. Grunt King 503 says, Transformers game was awesome. Well, thank you. I don't think it was awesome, but it was, I think, a lot of fun. Mr. Democracy, is it possible to access debug menus in any official releases of games you've worked on? No, except for one, and maybe I'll talk about that one day. Let's see what other questions we have. FYI, I'm going to be ending the stream at 2 p.m. my time, which is about 7 minutes. So if you've got any more questions, now is the time. I really do need to eat, and 2 hours feels like a good first run. Thank you so much to the 456 of you spending your afternoon, evening, or whatever else watching this nonsense. I totally appreciate it. I thought I'd have like 10 or 15 people tops. It's amazing to have this many people stream. Please let me know in the community section on YouTube, or if and when this video goes live to play back. If you enjoyed it, if there's things you want me to focus on or different, etc., let me know. What was your favourite Easter egg you've ever added to a game? Says Ed Cole. Favourite Easter egg I've ever added to a game? There was a ton in Pugsy of Easter eggs. There was a secret room which had letters in it. I think it was called This is a Hidden Room. And if you took the letters out in different stacked up orders, different words like heroes or cheat or things, they did different things. So there was a ton of Easter eggs in there. I think that was my favourite Easter egg system because it was a whole room full of Easter eggs. So there you go. Let's see. Any other cancelled games? Yes, we were making a game. Dragon Slayer Ormstein says, any other cancelled games? There was a game called SWAT Cats that we were making. I think way back when on the Sega Genesis on Mega Drive, there was a cartoon called SWAT Cats, which I think was very popular in the US. And we did start work on a game with that, and that was cancelled. And also we were making a Justice League game on the PS2, I think it was, for Midway back in the day, which got cancelled. There's probably some others. Can you make the giraffe jump? Good question. Yes, I can. There you go. And his legs go all splendidly. I could randomly run around here while trying to answer questions. Keep the live stream at least vaguely interesting. VHS Gamer 99 says, any thoughts on, and the bottom's cropped off my screen, on the upcoming Toy Story 4? I'm sure it'll be amazing. All the Toy Story movies are amazing. How could you make the game less dull or more fun? Are you talking about this game, The Lazy Comet? I'm assuming you would. There'd be a ton of ways. It does seem pretty dull, but we're missing sound effects and 4 players all playing at once. Party games are fun for a reason. I'm sure we'd have figured it out. I don't think we've ever really made, with possibly 1 or 2 exceptions, any truly bad games. So I'm sure this would have worked out. But yeah, in its prototype form, it's not exactly great fun. Nathan Box 64, afternoon on the West Coast. Great stream, John. Thank you. Yes, I am also on the West Coast, looking out the window at a lovely sunny day at the Pacific Ocean at my window. I'm very lucky. You might just hear it occasionally, waves crashing on the audio track. But which country I'm in? America. Cameron Carbra. Are you ever going to release more prototypes? I mean, this is the issue. Pugsy was a bit of an exception. I did release a very early build on that. No one really owns Pugsy, I don't think, beyond me. So I think that's why I did with that. The other games it's more problematic. Let's just say that. Trerev says, there's a Bionicle Media Archive community officially recognised by LEGO who's interested in the Bionicle Heroes prototypes. Maybe you could talk with them. Maybe so. Yeah. Hungry Jack Burger Man says, have you played Mr. Bones on the Sega Saturn? I haven't. Is it any good? Lord Megatron is resorting to bribes to try and get his files. Okay, yes, Terribly Bad Gamer. There is an exploit for modding the Wii, known as Indiana Pones, where is that how you say it, or owns? You play a hacked save for Lego Indiana Jones, which executes homebrew from the SD card. Do you know about this? Thoughts on this? I do know about that. It was amazing. I remember going onto eBay one time and seeing Lego Indiana Jones games on the Wii going for astronomical prices because people wanted to get their homebrew working. So yes, I did know about that. Wasn't intentional. Can't patch it. I'm sure it was fixed in later versions of Lego Indiana Jones. Illuminati Games, I'm not even going to do the number, says, I hate your Finding Nemo game. That is fine. It is fine. Hannah Stroud says, it's dark and windy here in Southeast America. Okay, dark and windy. Nintendo TV 64 says, I can't wait to see more content from you, John. Thank you, that's very kind. I'm glad I've found some more prototypes to be making this stuff of. Keeps things fresh and interesting. I went back to the UK over the summer, and I managed to find a lot of these old prototype discs back home in the UK. So that's about all I have, but I've got more here in a big folder, so I'll work my way through them over the next 6 months. We're actually coming up to a year of Game Hut. I actually posted my first video on the 30th of August last year. So I don't think we're going to make 100,000 subscribers, but we're through 86,000 subscribers, which boggles the mind. It would be amazing to get to 100 in 1 year, but I don't think that's going to happen. But thank you all so much for subscribing and making such a great community for me to be able to feed back and do this stuff. I can spend a few hours of my afternoon chatting to friends and playing games. What a better way to spend your time. Danny Sweeney, I heard that console porting can get tedious. I'm sure it does. I never did any console ports, but I'm sure it would get tedious. Let me see. Mikaluska, can you do any combos with the giraffe, which you learn in the story game? No, because I don't think you'd ever really play it like a platform game character. I think they're in very specific situations with a very specific moveset. J-Mac says, is the Fish Fountain Mountain you came up with the first level of Crash to Insanity another Christian allegorical Easter egg? Feeding of the 5,000? It wasn't, no. They had a brilliant physics system that was massively underused. So I just suggested it as a fun kind of weird sort of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Surreal thing to do, to use the physics and have these fish flapping around. So nothing allegorical in that one. Someone said something about quality. Mike says, do a collab with Beta64 for more subs in a short time. I wouldn't know how to do a collab with Beta64. Maybe Beta64 needs to get hold of me and maybe we'll figure something out. Illuminati Game says, did you like original Xbox development? The original Xbox I didn't develop for. Like I said, we had that ported. I was on the PS2 at that point, so I never really used the original Xbox. It was a big machine. I remember it being huge. Let's see. Oh almighty, this Hoover Dam spam. I know, Christian Iverson, there's a lot of Hoover Dam. I'll do that video sooner rather than later, I think, so we can... Ian2K7 says, do you know who snapped my Bugs Life PC disc when I was 6? Yes, I think it was George, who lived a few blocks away from you. Snuck in one evening. Mr. Tom Penguin, where more Sonic games planned by Traveller's Tales? Good question, Mr. Tom Penguin. Where more... I don't think so. We did Sonic Art. I'm trying to think. I think the Saturn died, so we moved on to PlayStation and started doing more Pixar games. I think that's what happened there. Neo Cyrus says, would you like to work on another Sonic game if you ever got the chance? Yes, I would. Sega, you know where I live. I love Sega. I love Sonic. He's a cool character. I love the older Sonic. I met with the guy who did the Sonic Mania. Had a coffee with him last year. I loved their Sonic Mania remake. It was amazing. So yeah, I'd love to work on Sonic. Who wouldn't? I'd love to work on the movie. Should be doing that too. And on that bombshell of Sonic, I think we'll end. Thank you so much for your time and dedicating any or all of your afternoon or evening to this. Let me know in the comments if there's things you'd like to change, or if there's quality issues or streaming issues or anything like that. Just let me know. And I'll be closing down now. Thanks once again, and I'm sure I'll do this again sometime. See you. Bye-bye.